And so I did something very brave. I decided I was going to read the New Testament. But where can I find the New Testament? In a Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn. So I walked into the local branch of the Brooklyn Public Library, and there on the shelf, Dewey Decimal 220, you will find Bibles. So I went to the stacks, kind of looked around, made sure no one was looking at me or watching me, because I had a lot of Jewish friends in the neighborhood, and I pulled the Bible off the shelf, full Bible. Again, my grandfather told me, he had warned me, that the New Testament was a handbook on how to persecute the Jews. And I opened the Bible kind of scared to the New Testament. I knew that the New Testament was the latter part of the Bible and that we weren't supposed to read it. And it was, as my grandfather told me, a handbook on how to persecute the Jews, written by anti-Semites. And I open up to the first page of the New Testament in the book of Matthew, and I read the words, "This is the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham." So far, everyone is Jewish. Jesus, David, and Abraham. And as you continue reading Matthew, just about everyone is Jewish. So it turns out this is a story in the New Testament of a Jewish man. Yeshua is, of course, his Hebrew name, the only name by which he was known. His name is Yeshua. He was born to a Jewish mother in a Jewish town in a Jewish country. So what could be bad about that? And I said, well, what's all the controversy? And as I started to continue to investigate further, I said, I've got to find someone who can explain this to me. And so I literally started calling church after church, saying, do you know any Jewish people who believe in Jesus, that Jesus is the Messiah? So finally, one pastor said, yes, I know of a man who can explain those things to you. And he put me in contact with an individual by the name of Vincent, who is not Jewish himself, but has a deep love and regard for the people of Israel, spent a year in Israel, living in Israel, and offered to speak with me about it. And I went over to his home, and this was, again, in Brooklyn. And I said to him, I need to understand who this Jesus was. Does he have anything to do with us Jews? It does seem that he was a Jew. How did things go so terribly wrong that in the history of our people now, there are people who say that they believe in Jesus, but they've horribly persecuted the Jewish people? By the time you get to be 19 and 20, you're aware as a Jew of the horrible history of persecution that we have endured at the hands of people who claim to be Christians. And so I said, how does this all fit together? How could both be true? How could Jesus be Jewish, and yet the people who say they believe in him have, so many of them at least, not all certainly, but so many of them have persecuted our people? And so he took me through a study of the scriptures. And turns out, I quickly came to understand that he knew more about my Bible than I did. Most of the time when you go to shul, when you go to synagogue, most of what you're reading are liturgical prayers. They're very beautiful, they're very nice, but they're not so much giving you an understanding of Scripture. And so he was able to open up the Jewish Bible and demonstrate to me that God had a special relationship with the Jewish people, that he had a concern and love for the Jewish people, and that he made a promise to send to the Jewish people the Messiah, the Mashiach, and that Mashiach would be, according to the Jewish prophets, born in a certain place. The prophet Micha said he would be born in Bethlehem, in Bethlehem, in Judah. Other places said the Messiah would be born in a very unique way as a miraculous sign. He would be born of a virgin. And he showed me all the evidence, and he said in history there is only one man who fits all of this outline of all of these hints, of all of these prophecies of what the Mashiach would be like. And he said, "It's Jesus." And I said, "Well, not so fast. I'm not so sure. What's this Trinity thing? Three and one and one. How do you make that go together?" And I had some other questions. That first time that I met him, we spoke for over 7 hours. Until at around 1 in the morning, he was falling asleep. And he gave me a book on the scriptures to read. And for the next 2 weeks, I read through the book, trying to find the answers to all my objections. I actually looked up all the verses and went back to his home a few weeks later. And once again, we went through the scriptures for hour upon hour. And then finally, he said, "Look at this passage in the book of Daniel." And he says, here in Daniel chapter 9, there's a very, very simple order of events. The Messiah appears in Israel, because it actually uses the word Messiah, Mashiach, in the Daniel 9 passage. The Messiah appears in Israel. Then he is killed. Not that he simply dies. There's a Hebrew word there, licharog, means he is killed by others. And then the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, is destroyed. So the Messiah is born, appears in Israel, the Messiah is then killed, and then the temple in Jerusalem is destroyed. And then he said, "Do you know when the temple was destroyed?" And I wasn't entirely sure. And then he said, the temple was destroyed in the year 70 AD. What does that mean? It means the Messiah had to have appeared and have died before 70 AD. What Jew who lived before 70 AD was born in just the right place that the prophets had foretold, born in the miraculous manner that the prophets had foretold, and did what the Mashiach was supposed to accomplish in his first coming? There's only one Jewish man in history that meets those requirements, and it's the God-man Jesus of Nazareth. And at that point, it became very clear and very obvious to me that if Jesus was not the Messiah, there would never be a Messiah ever. And so I prayed to receive Yeshua as my Jewish Messiah. I was keenly aware at that moment that it would be the most life-changing decision I would make. That's why in our first meeting I said, I'm not ready to do this. I'm not ready to jump into something that I know will change my life. And I need to make sure that this is real, that he is who he said he was. And so I prayed to receive the Messiah. At no time did I ever imagine that I was abandoning my Jewish identity. I was very content to be Jewish. And so I didn't feel I was trying to escape it, but rather that I was gaining the Jewish Messiah. And so for myself, that was something that was a good thing. In the weeks to come, I saw the Lord very definitely bring changes in my life, and I saw confirmations of the fact that something had really happened and that God had done a real work. And so that was a little over 30 years ago now, approximately 30 years. And the Lord has been willing to use me in ministry, and so I'm willing to be used.